Welcome to Behind the Review, where I explain just what was going through the back of my head when I decided to make any particular review. This series is more or less a better name for further thoughts. And it also has the ability of replacing me making commentaries, which is good because those tend to be a little bit too rambly. Today, we're talking about what I was thinking when I made my BoJack Horseman review, and we have a lot to unpackage. This was one of the more difficult reviews that I've ever had to make. Not because of the subject matter, but because of what I was going through in my own personal life, and what I continue to go through. BoJack Horseman was a show that a lot of people have been asking me for my thoughts on for quite a while before I did the review. I did watch the first couple of episodes, and I wanted to leave it at that. I will admit that, like many people. I had a lot of other projects on my mind at the time, but then I decided to watch the show again. I don't know exactly why I did, but it's not that unsurprising. The first episodes were just mediocre and not absolutely horrendous, and it's my job to review the worst of animation anyway, so even if this was blah all the way through, it shouldn't have been that hard. As I watched it, starting at episode about 4, I loved every single episode of the show, with the exception of one of them, and I'll get to that later. BoJack Horseman managed to replace Samurai Jack as my favorite cartoon of all time. And this is all very strange to me because I picked the absolute worst time to get into BoJack Horseman. It's not that I didn't have time to keep up with the show. I've always got plenty of time. I'm referring to more my mental state at the time. A little bit of backstory. Over the course of the past couple of years, I've come down with a rather strong case of thanatophobia. In English, it means that I'm afraid of dying. Well, not dying, but being dead. The sensation of death. Eternal oblivion. I bounce back and forth between being agnostic and atheist, but no matter what, I generally do subscribe to the atheist view of what happens when you die. As in, when it's over, it's over. Death is like going under anesthesia and being under it forever and never waking up. That is the closest thing that I can describe it, because it is inconceivable to the human mind to imagine its own non-existence. And yes, I am using that word properly in this context. The closest thing that you could probably imagine is blackness or a dreamless sleep, but to me, death is even less than that. The stereotype is that atheists are all up their ass about this, or they prefer it's the alternative. But honestly, speaking as an agnostic atheist, I find the atheist concept of death frightening as hell. And yes, it is still the one that I believe in. An atheist phrase is saying that any heaven that you can imagine is someone else's hell. And that's definitely true. It's also true of eternal oblivion. I prefer experiencing almost any hell over experiencing nothing at all. No thoughts, no dreams, no sense, no memories. I so desperately want to believe in a heaven or an afterlife of some kind, but I can't really choose what I believe in. I mean, I hope that there's an afterlife, I desperately hope so, but hope is not belief. So the next best thing is to figure out how atheists cope with death. I'm gonna be really blunt when I say this, but I think that a lot of them don't. I get happy phrases like, our atoms will rejoin the universe, and other pretty ways of saying that we become fertilizer and get eaten by worms. My favorite response to the fear of death is, think about it, no more pain or suffering. Once again, I'm going to be blunt. If that's your view of death, you're probably not living the best or the happiest life that you could. This response treats the lack of experience like it's relief, but relief is something that requires experience, and the sensuality of it, which you cannot do if you cannot experience anything. And what if you're not suffering in life? That makes this phrase meaningless or detrimental. Sure, it's the end of pain and suffering, but it's also the end of pleasure and happiness. Actually, I think that my favorite response to the fear of death is, you won't be around to experience it, so why are you afraid of death? Let me give you what that sounds like to me. Why are you afraid of fire? All it will do is scorch your body and scar you forever and leave you with searing pain until the day that you die. That's what that response to death sounds like to me. I won't be experiencing things anymore. That's the fear. It's not a specific moment I'm afraid of, it's the eternity after it. And then there's the old quote attributed to Mark Twain. Being dead for billions of years before I was born never inconvenienced me. So why should I worry about being dead? Well, the before I was born time inconvenienced me. I could, I don't know, buy stock in Microsoft, or explore the world when no one else knew about it. And I'm probably gonna die before we get to experience the stars, or before Half-Life 3 gets released. If we play the laws of chance, the world is going to be better off the day after you die than the day before it. More diseases will be cured, we'll have new technology, a wider pool of culture, new and exciting ideas, and the biggest problem plaguing your current life will probably be solved. With all of this going in my head, I started watching BoJack Horseman. Every single episode. And that kind of screwed up my head a little bit. I was feeling weird for the entire rest of the week, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm still fully recovered from it. Here I am, feeling like life is just a game of Tetris. The best you could do is get a high score before the game inevitably tops out. But it doesn't really matter because the game just doesn't save any data. In the show BoJack Horseman, life sucks. Life sucks, death sucks, and everything's pointless. We should try to enjoy our life. Yeah, the fear of death actually has 3 annoying symptoms. Nihilism, the belief that absolutely nothing matters and everything you do is ultimately pointless. Hypochondria, where you think that every little inconvenience is going to be it. Some of my best reviews I made over the course of the year were right before my surgery because something in me felt that it was a real possibility that that would be it. And there was the absolute desire to be remembered for something. Anything. Even though it was a very minor surgery with next to no chance for screw-up. And then the third symptom is hedonism. The most common response you get to being afraid of death is stop worrying about death and just enjoy your life. Okay, I'm gonna play video games all day and stuff my mouth with junk food. That's enjoying life, is it not? Or I could do something else. I could actually temporarily stop enjoying life to do things like my job and saving for the future. For instance, writing a book. I do find writing enjoyable, and I have a psychological compulsion to write, but many of the steps in the way to finishing a book are a pain in the ass, editing for one. And avoiding doing the unenjoyable steps was a big barrier that I conquered in the previous year. I like having written a book in hindsight, but I can't say that editing the thing time and again was really enjoying my life. You probably think of death even if you don't think that you do. I mean, let me give you a thought experiment. What if the solipsists are right? As soon as you personally are dead, that's the end of the universe. The universe only exists because of your personal experiences. When you die, the universe dies with you. How would that change how you live your life? Would you still have kids? Should artists stop creating masterpieces because it's a slow, tedious process, and they usually don't become famous until well after they're dead? Should scientists stop trying to find the cures to diseases that almost certainly won't be found within their lifetimes? There's more to life than just enjoying life. My least favorite episode of BoJack Horseman beyond the first few is the episode Still Broken. Most of it is good, it's mostly a fun episode. The old horsing around crew is solving a mystery, trying to find a book that Herb wrote, because he wanted to be remembered for it. It happens that the book turns out to be shit. Henry Winkler, Herb's old friend, gives the message that it's okay to die for nothing. Most people do. His words, not mine. It's not so much what was said, but who said it that makes this moral fail to me. Whether Henry Winkler likes his legacy or not, he was the Fonz, one of the most popular television characters of all time. It may seem small, but when Peter Griffin starts a religion around the guy, it's clear that Henry Winkler is not going to die for nothing. To me, it comes across as a very wealthy person saying, it's okay to be poor. Most people are. It might be true, but there's no way for it not to come across as condescending with who says it. And it sucks, because this is a message that I need so badly to understand. Then again, the best things that I've ever done in my life have been an absolute defiance of it being okay to die for nothing. 2016 was the year that I really started taking all of this seriously. A lot of people say that I always take everything too seriously, but no. Like, in 2016, my reviews morphed from a hobby into an actual career. And I'm really proud of a lot of things that I did over the course of the year. I think that my top 5 reviews of all time happened in 2016. Top 20 opening themes is my favorite video of all time because of all of the effort and the work and the help of my friends that went into it. Norm of the North and Shark Tale turned out to be fantastic reviews. And also The Telescope, which is another one of my favorites. At the end of the review, in the credits, I said a few things. I wanted to put them in the actual review, but it was getting to be too long, and I thought that it would bog it down or make it melodramatic or whatever. Despite any outrage and complaining that I do, no matter what I go through, fear of death, rampant insomnia, or internal cysts, right now I have a strong feeling that these are going to be the best years of my life. The horsing around years, if you will. And that's a problem. I'm 24 years old. Even if I fall back into rampant hedonism and trash my health, barring some gory accident, I'm not even halfway to the end of things. I know that what I'm doing here isn't going to last forever. I doubt that I'll get bored of what I'm doing, but internet fame doesn't last forever, and everyone knows that. One way or another, I can't do this forever. I understand that. I could slowly fade over time. There have been so many who have done that. Or I could be a target of a scandal that isn't my fault. Or I could end up saying or doing something really, really stupid. And the funny thing about saying or doing something stupid is that it's only that way in hindsight, and the cracks have been showing since damn near while you began. It might sound like I'm being hyperbolic, and maybe I am, but I knew the entire time of making my Screams of Silence review, or my Peter Assman review, or my Troll review, or especially my Homer Badman review or the Further Thoughts on the Good Family. I was hyper aware the whole process that could have been the end of the line. Everything could have tanked by posting those videos. What I said could have resonated horribly with my audience and blown up in my face. I mean, the Troll review kind of did. A lot of people cite that as the moment I went downhill and turned into a preachy SJW. Yeah, SJW. I wonder if they still think that about me. And they think that the Troll review is where everything went downhill, even though the review immediately after that one was more or less the same kind of review as the one immediately before that. I know that because I do that intentionally every single time. If I'm going to do a big heavy episode, I have to make sure the episode before it is, for lack of a better word, standard, and the one after it even more so. You're never going to get a Screams of Silence and a Homer Badman back to back. But in the long run, I don't know how much it matters, because one review like that can change people's perspective on everything that you've ever done and everything that you ever will do. For the most part, I think that these risks have paid off. But who knows? Maybe when I do Divorce Can Happen to the Nicest People, it will be the one. Because I know that divorce is a billion-dollar industry, complete with lawyers who are incentivized to encourage a take-em-to-the-cleaners attitude. Complete with several very bad, outdated systems that make the whole process even harder. For the record, I believe that a good divorce is better than a bad marriage. But, like, everything about the process encourages the divorce to be as horrible as possible. I kind of think that the first few episodes of BoJack Horseman were probably intentionally made to be mediocre, and not just the writers warming up. If you look at the character of BoJack superficially, you see a stupid asshole, like you'd expect a washed-up celebrity to be. If you look at the show BoJack superficially, you see another banal adult cartoon. But if you look past the grain, you see something a lot deeper, and something truly special. Because despite how often we rely on first impressions of something, they're wrong far more often than they're right. Everyone has a side that they don't show you until they know you. A side that can be absolutely beautiful or absolutely disgusting. Now, everyone has things that they don't tell even their closest friends. Personally, I don't really get first impressions anymore. Some people see one of my off reviews or one of my reviews from 3 years ago when I was ramblingly insulting people, and they think that they know anything about me, and they don't see any of the improvements that I made over the years. They also sometimes think that they know me as a person, even though I do sometimes greatly embellish my emotions while reviewing. And sometimes that off impression people get of you ends up being their only impression of you, even though it was the person that you were 3 years ago. And most of us are not the same person from month to month. I keep taking risks because I have to keep taking risks. Each one with the increasing chance that it's going to become the BoJack Horseman show. But I end up making reviews like Homer Badman and Peter Assman and even Troll because I don't like feeling like I'm living in South Park. I'd say to take that as you will, but you're going to do that anyway. As a creator, you have to keep taking risks. If you don't take risks, you fall into obscurity, or you become stale, like the Fairly OddParents, and I don't want to do that. Even more minor things can have amazing ramifications that I cannot predict. Getting an editor could have badly clashed with something that the majority of my audience wants. I could end up giving in to requests, and those requests happen to just be a vocal minority. A lot of people say that I should do more admirable animations, or at least as many as I do atrocities, but that could badly harm my career prospects because that's not what the numbers show. I could decide to not make a video one week because I'm sick, and that could have bad ramifications as I fade further into obscurity. On the flip side, I can make a video while I'm sick, and that video could end up worse because I'm sick. For better or worse, I understand that it's very likely that, in some regard, I'll end up like BoJack. Probably not as rich as BoJack, but just as vividly pathetic and washed up. That's internet fame for you. What am I going to do when all of this is over? I don't know. I mean, I have been desperately pining for some kind of fallback, but to be honest, everything feels harsh. A part of me feels like I got where I am, out of luck. I will say, I don't know what's going to resonate with a mass audience. Well, that's not entirely true. Sometimes I do. I know that if I review an episode of SpongeBob or Teen Titans Go, it will generally take off. But there are still questions that I can't answer. Why did my Big Fairy Share Scare review do so well? Way better than my Fairly Odd Dog review. when they have similar problems? Why is my Sanjay and Craig review my best non-list review ever, when my Breadwinners review didn't get that far, even though the shows are remarkably similar, and Breadwinners was newer at the time? Hell, if I know the answers to these questions, I don't know if anybody does. You can't predict what's going to take off, and you can't predict what's going to blow up in your face. So often it feels like I'm stepping into a minefield. Meanwhile, things that I know that have relied on my skill haven't managed to connect to an audience yet, and that's not a good feeling when you think that your biggest accomplishments in life are only because you're lucky. I've been desperate to just have something to fall back on, or some direction to move in, all while I feel constantly under some kind of time limit. At the end of my Bounty Hamster review, I said, quite humorously, that I wrote 20,000 words of the first draft of a novel in the past 2 weeks. And that was true. My novel. While I was writing the first draft, I wrote upwards of 3,000 words every single day, while doing reviews, while doing everything else, and while dealing with the pain of epididymal cysts. And you know what? You would too, if writing a book is something that you want to do with your life, and you felt that you could, metaphorically and literally, die at any time. A lot of this is all in my head, I know that, but when something is trapped in your head, it makes it kind of hard to escape. And the feeling that you're going to fade away is an amazingly tempting feeling to hold on to, believe it or not. It's one of the most potent feelings that I have. It's helped me finish things like I've never been able to before. You know, I'll get to it someday. Well, someday doesn't exist for me. I do it today. It stops me from procrastinating. Ever since I became afraid that I'd die and leave behind nothing, I've been doing things that I thought that I could never do before. You wanna know how to write a book? Be really, really afraid that you're going to die and leave behind nothing. That is how you get a book written. That is how you get a lot of things done. Ever since I became afraid that all of this would fade away, I've been pushing myself harder and harder to do better and better. I'm making a page of sketches every single day this year to get better at drawing, for instance. And I've been getting as much help as I can in that regard, because it's something that I really, really want to do. And yes, I still do want to make Growing Around in animation. Not to get it on a network or anything, but it's something that I want to do. It's something that I have a passion for. Is this unhealthy? Probably, but I don't really know. I'm not gonna know until it's too late. And even then, who knows, maybe the pros will outweigh the cons. Use the hardships in your life to get better. People say you suck, don't complain about it, get better. People who once inspired you and who you looked up to, they talk you down, don't complain about it, get better. I don't know if I could do this all forever, but it's better than the alternative. Where I am in life, made watching BoJack Horseman difficult in its own right. But you know, that's probably why I love the show so much. Saying all this would make you think that I would absolutely hate this show, and I will admit it took a while for me to sort out my feelings. But in the end, just seeing someone else go through some of the harsher aspects of life can make you feel like you're not alone. And that's probably truly what makes BoJack Horseman a fantastic show. You know, seeing a character go through life, like real, actual life, instead of just a sitcom plot or a wacky incident. It feels, I don't really know, it's hard to describe, but it feels engaging. As for me personally, I'd like to say that I don't know what the future holds, but I so strongly feel like I do that it's not even funny. It's not strange that the happiest character on BoJack Horseman is the one who pays the least attention to the world, and his own life in particular, Todd. Of all of the characters in the show, Todd is the only one you could describe as happy with his life, and he's constantly portrayed as unaware of the world around him. But I actually don't know how true that is. He seems to know a lot more than he's letting on. My friends came up with a pretty interesting theory. At the end of Season 3, he sells a business and gets millions of dollars, and then immediately he gives it up as a tip to a waitress. What's played off as a moment of stupidity, Todd being Todd, might actually been very smart and very intentional. Todd has personally seen what fame and money has done to people, including his closest friend. He's seen what it's done to BoJack. Also, he was trapped in an improv cult, and he managed to fool an entire country with acting abilities. So, the guy can act on the spot. On a lighter note, more reviews will be coming soon. Right now, things are a bit hectic in a non-existential way. My editor is settling down, and I myself will be moving within the next couple of months. So, that'll be fun. In the meantime, after the Squirrel Boy review gets done, I've got a 90s marathon for you all, as a preparation for my top 10 worst cartoons of the 90s. Starting with, coincidentally enough, Hammerman, who kind of had a similar story to BoJack Horseman.